Welcome to Crafted Nest, where real hands shape beautiful spaces, and every square foot of soil tells a story. If you ever stepped into your backyard and felt like something was missing, some texture, some soul, some whisper of the Mediterranean, this is your moment. In today's episode, we're walking through 17 real-life garden ideas that fix the biggest mistake homeowners make in tiny outdoor spaces. Doing too much or doing nothing at all. These aren't just pretty designs. They're poetic, practical, and profoundly doable, whether you got a full yard or just a scrap of fence and a dream. From whispering vines and clustered terracotta to vertical herb pockets and glowing twilight paths. This video is for every gardener who wants to feel something deeper in their garden again. So take a deep breath, grab your favorite drink, and settle in if you find inspiration here, and we think you will. Don't forget to subscribe to Crafted Nest. It's free. It supports our small team, and it makes sure you never miss another moment of garden magic. Now, let's begin. There's a kind of silence that only grows beneath vines, not emptiness, but breath. In Elena's garden, the pergola wasn't an architectural statement. It was 4 old beams she found near a construction site, weathered and patient, waiting for a second life. She didn't build it for photos. She built it for mornings. Each post now holds a different vine. Wisteria, grape, and jasmine, all tangled into a canopy of scent and shifting color. Sunlight weaves through like thread, stitching warmth into gravel below. The chairs under the structure don't match. One is iron and squeaky, the other still carries the paint of someone else's porch. But together, with a small cafe table between them, they host breakfasts that stretch into afternoon. You don't need much to make your own, just honesty in the materials. Reclaimed wood, maybe an old bamboo trellis, a vine that wants to reach. Trust it. Let the leaves write their own shape. Let time soften the structure. Because sometimes the most beautiful rooms have no walls, no ceiling, only stories that climb toward the sky. Marta never rushed. Even in the city, she moved like she was walking through a dream. Her backyard wasn't wide, just a slim strip of land tucked between fences. But when she laid the first stones, the space began to hum. Each step along her gravel path became its own quiet ritual. Lavender came first, its purple wands bobbing like sleepy dancers. Then creeping thyme took root, weaving itself into the spaces between stones like thread. She tucked rosemary near the base of the fence, not for order, but for touch, for how it brushed her ankle with memory. This path didn't lead anywhere grand. It was just long enough for a stroll with morning tea or for evening reflection with a garden trowel in hand. The gravel spoke with soft crunches beneath her feet, marking time with sound instead of clocks. To create your own, begin with what you have: a stretch of dirt, a bag of gravel, clippings from a friend's herb patch. Let your choices be guided by scent and memory, not symmetry. Plant where it feels right. Walk it slowly. Because when your garden listens back with lavender and thyme, even the smallest journey feels eternal. Sophia never saw her garden wall as just a boundary. To her, it was a journal, one written in rust and ceramic, wire and ivy. There were no blueprints, only memories. She began with a chipped terracotta pot from her grandmother's stove, mounted with wire that curled like old handwriting. Then came a hand rake, weathered and crooked, its handle once held by her father as he shaped rose beds. She added more as seasons passed. A spoon bent into a hanger, a cracked plate pieced back together with care, a wooden ladle now spilling with succulents. None of it matched, but all of it mattered. Each object was placed not for aesthetic perfection, but for the weight of memory it carried. Ivy curled in like punctuation, creeping between these artifacts like a green thread stitching time. You don't need a perfect wall to begin. An old fence, a forgotten side your shed, or even a blank brick stretch will do. Gather what's been waiting: broken tools, whether kitchenware, little things too loved to throw away. Nail them in with instinct. Let the wall become a collection of echoes, each one whispering its own story. This isn't decoration, it's reclamation. And once you begin, you'll find that your past has always wanted to bloom. Johnny never left the city, but every morning, the corner of his courtyard smelled like Florence. It wasn't the architecture or the landscape that transported him. It was the coffee, the cracked table, and the rusted charm of 2 chairs pulled close under the rising light. He had no space for gardens with borders, only a patch of stone between old pipes and stucco walls. But he made it enough. A table he'd tiled one rainy weekend became the anchor. One chair came from the street, the other from an aunt who'd once served espresso with laughter and biscotti. Each morning, he returned. A warm mug, a scrap of paper, a moment that didn't need more than what already was. Birds sometimes chattered overhead. The city still moved, but slower here, quieter here. To create your own, find your forgotten corner. Add a table no wider than your outstretched arm. Choose chairs that comfort. Even if they squeak, rest a plant beside you, basil, perhaps something alive to keep you company. You're not building a patio. You're shaping a ritual. And when you sit, whether for 5 minutes or 50, let that tiny cafe belong fully to you. Coffee-scented, vine-shaded, and quietly perfect. Luca never imagined his garden would speak back. But one summer, it did, in the language of water. It began with a single clay bowl, half forgotten behind the shed. He nestled it in gravel, added a handful of smooth stones, and tucked in a solar pump he'd bought on a whim. When the trickle started, the change was instant. Not loud, not showy, just a soft, steady whisper that filled the corners of his courtyard with life. The birds came first, sipping at dawn. Then the bees, brushing the water's edge. Even the city noise felt further away, softened by the sound. He realized the fountain wasn't just decorative. It was a shift in rhythm, a new kind of heartbeat in the garden. You don't need stone lions or marble basins. An old bowl, a ceramic pot, even a repurposed sink will do. Set it low among your herbs, where the mint grows wild and the lavender leans in. Add a small solar pump and let the water move, not to impress, but to soothe. In time, your fountain won't just attract birds and butterflies. It will attract stillness. And in that quiet hum, you'll find a new kind of beauty, one that needs no words to speak. Isabella didn't prune everything. In one corner of her garden, she let the wild things happen. She left fennel to tower and bloom, let mint spill over the edges, and hung a shallow dish filled with pebbles for thirsty bees. It wasn't messy. It was intentional, rhythmic, soft. Butterflies came first, their wings bright against the green. Then came the hum. Bees, hoverflies, and little creatures that dance in spirals under the sun. There was no grand design, just an invitation. She didn't plant in rows. She scattered seeds like wishes and waited. Some bloomed, others didn't. But that didn't matter. What mattered was motion, color, a sense of life stirring the garden even when she was still. You can create this too. Dedicate a meter of soil, a few pots on a balcony, or even an old crate. Fill them with native flowers, ones that your local bees know best. Forget the sprays. Leave the stem standing. Add a perch, a pebble tray, a bloom without expectation. In return, the winged ones will come. And your space, however small, will buzz not just with pollinators, but with purpose, with memory, with the ancient joy of sharing your garden with the air. In the heart of her city balcony, Livia kept a small piece of the old world. It came in the shape of a pot, imperfect clay, weathered by time, and inside it, a young olive tree no taller than her knee. Each morning, she greeted it like a friend. The tree didn't bear fruit. That wasn't its gift. Its gift was steadiness, the soft silver glint of its leaves, the way it caught sunlight and turned it into stillness. Beneath it, she'd sometimes place a soft cloth to guard the roots from cold, not out of necessity, but care. This tree reminded her of hills she'd only seen once, of oil pressed in stone courtyards, and of stories told with hands and harvests. It needed very little: a sunny spot, water in quiet hours, and a heart willing to listen. To make one for yourself, choose a deep, breathing pot, terracotta, ceramic, something that speaks of soil. Plant a dwarf olive, suited for containers. Let it sit where light lingers longest. Don't rush it. This tree is not for fruit. It's for grounding. And one day, when the city spins fast around you, you'll rest your fingers on its branch and remember what stillness feels like. Camilla didn't arrange her garden in lines. She arranged it in feelings. Each pot she placed held a story. One from a friend's farewell, one from her mother's balcony, One rescue from the back gate of florist's shop. None of them matched, but all of them mattered. They weren't decor. They were voices, cluster-like conversations in the shade. Some sat high on bricks. Others leaned gently into each other on the steps. A few had moss growing around their rims, softening the years. Rosemary reached tall beside the citrus. Ivy curled low near thyme and marjoram. And between them all, the cracks and chips glowed golden in the sun, not as flaws, but as signs of life. She never cleaned them too well. She let the patinas stay, sun-kissed, rain-marked, memory-soaked. Because terracotta doesn't need perfection. It needs presence. You don't need new pots or perfect plants. Gather what you have, broken urns, mismatched containers, bowls from kitchens past. Fill them with herbs and blooms. Stack them. Let them lean. Let them spill. Let them tell your story not with polish, but with honesty. And when you sit among them, barefoot on warm stones, you'll know beauty doesn't live in order. It lives in togetherness. Emilio didn't need a destination. He just needed a path. He knelt one morning, knees dusty, hands full of crushed granite, and began laying the trail that would turn his small yard into something sacred. It wasn't wide. It didn't lead to a fountain or a gate. But with each stone he placed, something changed. The garden began to sing. At first, the gravel felt sharp, but over time, rain softened it. Footsteps pressed it in, and petals from lavender mixed with the dust. The scent of rosemary brushed his ankles as he passed, and time crept into the edges like a quiet blessing. What once was a patch of soil had become a passage, not just for walking, but for feeling. These paths don't need perfection. They need rhythm. Let yours curve. Let it follow the shape of your space and the shape of your thoughts. Line it with what's growing, herbs, flowers, or simply weeds that hum with green, because when gravel crunches underfoot and shadows fall long beside your steps, you'll understand. This isn't just how you move through the garden. This is how the garden moves through you. Francesca never tried to stop her garden from changing. She let it exhale with each passing season. In summer, her bench was bare, sun-warmed and waiting beside baskets of basil. Come autumn, she draped it in soft throws and placed bowls of dried oranges on the stone table nearby. When winter tiptoed in, she lit candles in glass jars and tucked sage and cabbage roses into fresh pots. And when spring finally arrived, the new blooms didn't shout. They whispered slowly, like the world waking up from a long nap. She didn't rip things out or start over. She swapped gently. She listened. She adjusted textures like one would change clothes. Wool for cotton, metal for wood, dried for fresh. To follow her rhythm. Look at your space not as a project, but a partner. When the light changes, let your fabrics, plants, and objects change with it. Introduce warmth when the air turns cold. Let color soften when the sky is gray. Because the most beautiful gardens aren't fixed. They breathe. And when you shape yours like a living rhythm, even the simplest seat beside a rosemary pot becomes something new. Again and again. Julia never owned a matching set. Her garden wasn't about symmetry. It was about memory. Each chair had a story. One came from a flea market in Palermo, its bentwood arms still warm with the laughter of strangers. Another was a wicker stool left out for trash on her street, saved, wiped clean, and given a soft cushion. A third, rusted and loud when moved, came from her mother's garden long ago. When she arranged them under the trailing vines, something happened. They belonged, not because they matched, but because they didn't. Their differences echoed the many lives that had passed through them. And when guests sat down, they didn't just sit. They stepped into a story. You don't need new furniture to create this kind of magic. You need curiosity. Find what comforts you, not what coordinates. Search thrift shops, porches, even roadside offerings. Look for what's been softened by sun and rain, shaped by hands before yours. Then arrange them gently. Add a cushion, a drape cloth, a simple table for coffee or tea. Let the imperfection stay. Let the rust and we'll speak of life. Because the most welcoming places to sit are the ones that feel like someone just left and left their warmth behind. To Alessandro, the wall was more than a backdrop. It was the soul of the garden. Each morning, his hand brushed the stucco as he passed, Not to clean, not to fix, but to remember. The wall had seen seasons change and vines grow. It had held warmth long after the sun had gone, glowing softly at twilight like old stone in a Tuscan village. The cracks weren't flaws. They were poems written by weather and time. Moss found corners to curl into. Ivy whispered along the surface, anchoring the present to the past. And when rosemary brushed its leaves against the wall, it wasn't just a scent, it was a breath of memory. You don't need a countryside ruin to feel this way. You need texture. Let your wall age. Use plaster or lime wash that welcomes the sun. Reclaim bricks if you can. Let the surface tell its story. Add nothing polished, only things that belong. Hang old tools or tiles not to decorate, but to witness. Let rain mark the color. Let light do what it does best. Make the ordinary beautiful. Because a wall in a garden is never just a wall. It's a canvas for time. Lucia didn't have land. She had walls. And from those walls, she grew poetry. She tied twine, mounted mesh, whispered encouragement to her ivy and jasmine like old friends. Climb, there's sky up there. And they listened. Leaf by leaf, season by season, her hard boundaries softened into a living curtain. The fence stopped being a fence. It became a frame for motion, for green tendrils that shimmered with wind, for blooms that caught the morning light, and bees that danced through shadows. You don't need ornate trellises to do this. Start with wire, twine, repurposed mesh, even old ladders. Train your climbers. Ivy for patience, clematis for color, jasmine for scent. Don't force them. Let them find their rhythm. And when they spill over the top, let them fall, like stories coming full circle. Because vertical gardens don't just save space. They raise intimacy. They turn walls into wonder, boundaries into breath. And in that green curtain, you might find yourself looking up, not just at plants, but at possibility. Elena had no soil to dig, no room for rows. But she had ropes, beams, and sunlight. So she hung her garden like laundry. Hooks held buckets. Old tins became cradles. A forgotten grow bag became home to basil that stretched toward the sky. She didn't follow a diagram. She followed the rhythm of what needed space and what needed light. And over time, her walls sang. Tomatoes blushed above her head. Rosemary brushed her fingertips. The scent of parsley rose when she watered, dripping from one tear to the next. Each plant was reachable. Each meal began with a reach. To grow like this, start simple. A beam, a railing, even a strong fence. Hang containers from hooks or knots. Use what you have. Plant herbs that spill, vegetables that rise, blooms that feed both bees and bowls. Water from above and let the rhythm do the rest. And one day as you cook, your ingredients will come from the air, not the ground. They'll dangle beside you like offerings from the sky. And in that moment, your garden won't feel limited. It will feel free. When the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Kiera's garden didn't sleep, it glowed. She never used floodlights or LEDs that screamed. Her light whispered. Small bulbs were strung across the pergola, like stars drawn with string. Rusted lanterns flickered low beside the herb pots. A candle inside a glass jar breathed warm against the gravel. The glow wasn't meant to show the garden. It was meant to feel it. This was when wine glasses clinked softly, when footsteps slowed, when stories unspooled beside flickering flame. To light your space this way, you don't need power tools or perfect wiring. Begin small. Hang string lights from anything, branches, hooks, beams. Choose warm bulbs. Add candles in jars or lanterns found at thrift shops. Use solar lights along paths where shadows fall long. Don't try to chase the dark away. Let the light settle like memory. Because in gardens, it's not brightness we crave, it's presence. And the right light, quiet and golden, can turn even the smallest yard into a sanctuary, where glow becomes feeling, and night becomes magic. Sophia's garden didn't reveal itself all at once. It unfolded. From the gate, a small gravel path led to a table. Just beyond, a circle of pots gathered like friends around a bench. And at the farthest edge, a single urn stood quiet and waiting. The garden wasn't big, but it felt like chapters in a story, each part its own place. She didn't use fences or walls. She used rhythm. Gravel to tile, bench to table, a trellis here, a shift in light there. She let planters guide the eye, let stone mark transitions, and every step carried her deeper into her own quiet world. You can do the same. Think of zones, not walls. One spot for sitting, one for herbs, one just for beauty. Use texture to tell the difference. Soil beside gravel, ruffle beside smooth stone. Let a potted tree act as punctuation, a vine-draped trellis as a gentle doorway. Because even the smallest garden can feel like a journey, if you let each part tell a different story. And when those stories flow from one to the next, your yard becomes more than space. It becomes experience. In the farthest corner of Mateo's garden, the past was still alive, not in stone monuments, but in soup pots, ladles, and chipped tiles. A rusted pan bloomed with mint. A broken drawer cradled rosemary. A marble shard, once part of his childhood home's kitchen floor, leaned quietly behind it all, cold to the touch, but warm with memory. He hadn't decorated his garden. He'd curated it, not with trends, but with tenderness. None of these pieces matched. None were new, but they carried stories of meals cooked, hands stirred, children laughed. Now they held roots. To recreate the spirit, don't buy. Remember, look around your home, your storage, your family's cast-offs. Find what's worn and loved. Fill it with soil. Plant something simple. Let the cracks breathe. Let the rust speak. These aren't just planters. They are relics. And when the wind moves through them, when your hand waters them, when someone pauses to look, they'll feel the echo too. Because some of the most meaningful gardens are grown not in perfect pots, but in memory.